When Euphoria premiered in 2019, it felt like a big deal. The series, a loose remake of an Israeli drama, had high-quality production value and dealt with modern teenage problems in the digital age. It has extremely interesting characters that are easy to get attached to. The first season has this impressive balance of grit and tenderness in a landscape of high school dramas that can feel very repetitive. It felt new and fresh due to its willingness to explore subjects such as drug addiction, toxic masculinity, pretty much every form of abuse, and trans identity. While I don't believe Season 1 is perfect, it is damn good TV. Due to the pandemic, production on Season 2 was postponed, with time between seasons filled by 2 specials. The first of which being my favorite story the show has ever told. After another year of waiting, Season 2 finally premiered in the beginning of 2022. It was finally back, and excitement was at an all-time high, with each episode of the new season drawing bigger and bigger ratings. Then why is Season 2 kinda poo-poo? Well, first we need to take a look at the show's creator, main director, and the show's sole credited writer, Sam Levinson. Sam had his into the industry as he is the son of Barry Levinson, a producer and director himself, most well known for Rain Man. Sam directed 2 movies before Euphoria, Another Happy Day, which I haven't seen, and Assassination Nation. I think Assassination Nation is almost like a proto-Euphoria. It shares certain themes and even cast, but Assassination Nation does aim for a slightly more exaggerated tone. I really enjoyed the movie when I first saw it, but now in hindsight, there are certain problems.
Not all men.
Sam Levinson loves writing about other groups despite himself being a cishet white male. He gets a lot of criticism for this, as it comes off as if he is putting himself on a pedestal for including so much representation into his work. There was a ton of criticism leveled towards Assassination Nation for these very reasons. You would think Sam Levinson would hear these criticisms and use them to improve his future work. However, between Euphoria Season 2 and the aforementioned specials, he released Malcolm and Marie. Malcolm and Marie was a movie that was shot during the peak of the pandemic, which shows from its restrictive one location and only using 2 actors. The film follows a black director who has all sorts of ethical debates with his girlfriend after the premiere night of his biggest film. He complains mostly about critics of his work, and even goes on tirades about how race shouldn't matter when it comes to filmmaking.
Why did I shoot the scene the way I did? Is it because I'm a man? Is it because I'm straight? Is it because I'm desensitized to violence? Or is it because I believe that if you witness trauma on screen, the audience should also feel that fucking trauma? That is the mystery of art, of film, what drives someone to make something and fucking say something.
It is hard not to see what Sam is trying to do with this movie. However, it just comes off as petty. I couldn't really watch this as a drama, but had to view it more as a comedy about a pompous director finally being challenged by his better-off girlfriend. This work was unintentionally revealing a lot about Sam Levinson and what he thinks about himself and his work. I'm not saying Sam is a tortured artist, but he has shown some self-awareness in the past and was able to reel himself back. Euphoria Season 1 is a great example of that. Euphoria had a lot to prove with its first season, as shown by its marketing. Every poster was just Zendaya, as she was the lead and the biggest name acting in the project. When the show premiered, the first episode is pretty focused on her. One of the faults I have with the series right off the bat is that I really did not like the pilot. Zendaya's Rue is frustrating due to her complete refusal to even attempt recovery, but I understand why it has to be this way. The show needs to do a lot of heavy lifting to get the audience to empathize with Rue due to the many frustrating decisions she will make going forward. More on this later, because the point I'm trying to get to now is that after the pilot, the show just got better as it expanded to more of an ensemble piece. The thing that really attributes to Euphoria being as big of a deal as it is the characters. So many of them are relatable, or at the very least interesting. Each struggled with some niche issues not really explored in a show like this before. It was skins updated for the modern age. Everyone got to have a fave, who each played some sort of role in Season 1. While some did not get very big storylines, they were at the very least memorable to the point you would be interested in seeing them expanded upon. I definitely like certain stories more than others, but overall the good stuff got more focused than the meh. Something else that is praiseworthy about Season 1 is the visuals. Dynamic cinematography was used sparingly to service important story beats. This is something I will get into later, but the visuals never felt flashy for flash's sake. They were implemented with purpose and meaning. Sam Levinson writing-wise knew how to pace the show to keep the audiences hooked, leading to a lot of praise, pretty much guaranteeing a second season. When the second season finally premiered over 2 years after the Season 1 finale, I thought the first episode was fine. It was not a great start, but did enough table dressing for what was hopefully to come. Every character felt like they had seeds planted that would grow into satisfying arcs to explore these many layered characters. And then it just didn't. Some would say the structure of this video should go episode to episode. However, as stated earlier, I feel the core of the show really is its characters. So I would much rather go through each principal character to discuss how Season 2 completely either neutered or horribly misused each character. There will be some sidebars, but let's get the easy ones out of the way first. This is an easy one and an odd one. McKay was a main character in Season 1, and truthfully his storyline was probably my least favorite. It explored some interesting ground, however none of it really stuck with me. By the time Season 2 rolled around, I had completely forgotten his role in the story other than being romantically linked to Cassie. Being the only main character besides Fez to not currently be in high school, McKay felt so separated from the main cast. Maybe they could have fixed this in some way, like he drops out of college and needs to figure out what his path is in life. He moves back home and becomes that sad guy who peaked in high school. Instead, he just shows up in the premiere and is never addressed again. This struck a lot of people as odd because he never really gets any wrap-up. He is just used to be someone Nate can spray his toxic ideals at. I am assuming Sam Levinson felt McKay's storyline was just too out of place, and instead of putting forth some sort of effort to fix it, he just cut him out. One of the first of many weird writing choices during the season. With McKay gone, instead of using his absent screen time to give any other character more, Sam created a whole new character to show off, and the results made me actually miss McKay. Elliot is easily the worst character in the whole show. A new student who is also addicted to drugs but can seemingly manage it better than Rue can. He's introduced out of nowhere, like Rue just walks into a room and there he is. He then, in a very short amount of time, becomes somehow integrated into Rue's and Jules' relationship. The problem is that Elliot is not charming or interesting. Rue only initially hangs out with him because he has drugs. Fez also gave Rue drugs, but never suddenly became Rue's best friend. We get almost no backstory on this guy, and this could either be attributed to a writing issue or an acting issue, but I have very little idea of what this guy feels about anything. He is just there. I was consistently waiting for some big twist with this guy. I thought, oh, they are purposely withholding his past to be some sort of big reveal. Maybe he is secretly violent and predatory. Maybe he expects sexual favors from Jules or Rue and gets angry when they don't want to, but nope. He is just there. Elliot in hindsight just feels like a waste of space, especially when you look back at what he actually does in the season. So not only is Elliot so charming that Rue is attracted to him, somehow his allure is so strong he is able to sleep with Jules, even after telling her Rue is back on drugs, his only true narrative function of the story. After he does this, he doesn't do anything else. He plays a full song that may factor into Rue's decision to try harder to recover, but it is very unclear. Maybe he could have left a stronger impression on me if he interacted with literally any other characters. He just feels so out of place, and I bet Sam could have figured out some other already established character to rat out Rue's drug addiction. Just so pointless. Okay, so here's probably going to be my hottest take of the show. I earlier praised the visuals of Season 1 because they were used sparingly and with purpose. This is one of the most beloved things about the show that I think it went to Sam Levinson's head. This season, Sam really seemed to go out of his way to create shots with very little meaning and more for the purpose of being a Tumblr gift. The one that always sticks out to me is this shot of Cassie surrounded by flowers. A lot of effort was put into this visual, but for what? I know some people may be able to draw meaning, but its place in the story makes no sense. We just cut to it, and the context of the episode it communicates Cassie is sad, something we already know very clearly, I might add. The season's big visual bombastic moments feel very basic, like overdone for no real reason. Sometimes Sam just reuses visuals from Season 1 as like a callback. I don't know, come up with something new. The visuals feel like distractions more than in service of the story being told. At some point, it stops being impressive when you just keep spamming flashy camera movements. Take the pilot, where the camera shifts with Rue as she is very high on drugs. It is very purposeful and helps enhance our experience as viewers. You know, what a good shot is supposed to do. A possible limitation of this season was the decision to switch from digital cameras to film. While both have their pros and cons, a very basic fact is how much more difficult film is to use to most people. Sure, your frame may look prettier, but it really limits what kind of shots you can get. Now, some say the visuals save the show, but I feel when it comes to TV that really shouldn't matter. A lot of people really do not acknowledge how much time they waste watching TV. If you look at it time-wise, this season of Euphoria was over 8 hours long. You could have watched 4 really good 2-hour movies with that time. For me, when it comes to TV, the most important thing is the writing. There are many TV shows I really like with low-quality visuals, but I don't mind because I'm invested in a well-written story. Euphoria looks good, but there are also 50 other shows that also look good and are well written. Hell, there are hundreds of shows that look worse but are more worth your time because of their great writing. Are pretty images really enough to look past hours of bad TV? One of the characters I think went pretty unscathed this season is Fez. One of the nice things is that Angus Cloud has really improved as an actor and is able to sell most of his scenes.
This is becoming a fucking issue. Wait, Ash, no!
First episode of season 2 ends with a bang as Fez catches Nate off guard and brutally beats him. But this doesn't really matter. All this really amounts to is Cal showing up and revealing his tapes to Fez and getting beat up. Fez never uses this information for anything, so him beating up Nate was just a strong way to end the first episode, for no other reason than to be shocking. It doesn't even affect Lexi's opinion of him. She is still attracted to him even after he beat the shit out of this guy for seemingly no reason, and knocked her sister away so he could continue to do so. Fez as a character this season makes sense. He doesn't make any sort of out-of-character decisions, but his main storyline is really dragged out. It is established very early on that people are looking for Mouse's killer, only for it not to be followed up on until the final 2 episodes. I don't really have much to say about Fez's final scene of the season. Like most things this season, it is dragged out with a lot of time wasted between everything, but overall Fez is the only main character not affected by the quality drop of the season. Another character who, for the most part, seemingly improved this season was Lexi. I only mean this in the most arbitrary sense in the fact that Lexi gets a large amount of screen time this season compared to the first. As a shy wallflower, Lexi never really got any attention unless it had something to do with Rue in Season 1. Season 2 sees Lexi trying to forge her own identity by writing her own play and starting a flirtatious relationship with Fez. It is nice because Fez makes Lexi feel seen. It finally seems at least one character was improved between seasons. Then the play happens, and this is pretty much all thrown out the window. The next section goes really into the play, but I cannot grapple with some of the shit displayed. Lexi had always been portrayed as a very empathetic character. She can't really stand up for herself, but always goes out of her way to help people. Writing a play that makes fun of close loved ones, and even some people she doesn't even know very well, is so extremely out of character for her that it makes her look like a bully. She doesn't clear these depictions with anyone, including going deep into the tragedy of Rue's dad and her drug addiction. Might have been nice to ask if that was okay. I'm glad Lexi was able to be the center of something, but this play is just fanfiction she wrote about herself.
I really wish I'd phoned Lexi Howard.
Yeah, you and the rest of East Island.
Her conversation with Rue seems nice, but at this point I just didn't care anymore. I think a lot of the show's problems are on full display during the final episodes concerning Lexi's play, which is the climax of the season. An event with so many contrived working parts, it made me question the intentions of everyone involved. So Lexi is writing and directing a play based on her life and the characters she has observed. When I first heard of the play being filled with doppelganger versions of our main characters, I was excited. The potential reminded me of an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where the characters watch a show that gives a highlight reel of the whole series up to that point, giving some much needed levity before diving into the tense final episodes of the whole show. What we got was a real half-assed version of that idea. We never really get to see scenes play out in the play, because it will just cut to the actual previous event in the name of being poetic. How wonderful would it have been if you say 2 weeks had passed since the previous episode, and we get caught up on what happens in those 2 weeks through the filter of the play? Bad high school actors feeding you crucial events through the lens of a shitty play. Instead, we get this lame, overproduced mess. Just stinks of wasted potential and character insight, because even though a whole episode is dedicated nearly exclusively to this, the play really only exists to make Nate mad, Cassie have a breakdown, and Rue to go clean for a bit. A whole episode used to lead to this and not have any effect on any other character. Alright, insightful commentary done, time for borderline nitpicky complaints. What the hell was the budget for this thing? Multiple sets and costumes despite this really lame joke at the beginning trying to make it seem lame and cheap? You can't do that and feature a revolving set, Sam. I went to a performing arts school and we had to build a single set over one we had to use the previous year. How the hell does this school have this much money to put into an original, student-written play? And a shitty one at that. Somehow Lexi was able to write, direct, and star in this play? I can't even begin with this one, I just can't. The bits we do see do not seem to connect in the slightest, and has a really awful musical sequence halfway through. No one thought this was dumb to put in a memory play? Imagine if Glass Menagerie had a dance sequence to Barbie Girl just shoved in the middle. I suspect Sam Levinson has never been to a play, a high school, or a high school play. This shit is never full. Back to writing logic. I think the fact that every main character is in the audience is a complete misjudgment of most, if not all, characters. Of course Fez would have gone if he could due to his relationship with Lexi. Rue being there can work, as maybe she is trying to find a way to get her mind off drugs and wants to be a better friend to Lexi. Jules might be able to sit through a play. Elliot is... I don't know. Why the hell are Nate and Cassie there? Cassie walked out on her family last episode, and Nate never really struck me as a man of theater. Same goes for Maddie. Maddie 100% does not give a shit about a play. Sam just needed them to be there so he could have the characters have reactions. Don't think about why they are there, they just need to be there, okay? You were building to this all season, maybe you could have at least tried to justify this aspect, cause this one act simply betrays all of your characters. Speaking of betraying characters, let's get back to the nitty-gritty. Maddie did not really get any expansion on her character this season. She had two parts to her story: her relationship to her rich employer, which at times was implied to become more sexual, and even predatory, actually goes nowhere. Haha, gotta watch season 3! I'm not saying everything needs to pay off within the same season, but these are goddamn breadcrumbs, not interesting story beats. The only other thing Maddie has going on during this season is not even something she has an active role in. This being her finding out Nate and Cassie have been sleeping together for most of the season. She has one of the few good scenes in the season when she comes close to finding out about this the first time they hook up. It is genuinely pretty tense and darkly comedic. Then the storyline doesn't develop for about 4 episodes. Maddie is completely oblivious until Rue blurts it out in episode 5. It just feels odd. Maddie's established as a brash character who will take charge and deal with consequences later. So her just feeling like she's on standby for most of the season feels wrong. I mean, she stole the recording of Jules and Cal having sex just to hold it over Nate. This pays off with Nate threatening her with a gun to get it back. Maybe this is the last straw for Maddie. Maybe she is done with Nate after seeing this side of him. We are not sure what direction this is going in because she doesn't talk about it at all after it happens. This really traumatizing event really had no noticeable lasting effect on her because she seems like her snappy self when the play rolls around. So to really get into more about what Maddie truly does for the majority of the season, I need to talk about Cassie. Out of all the shitty ends of sticks given to characters this season, Cassie received one of the shittiest. Now, Cassie in season 1 is not someone I would describe as a character with a lot of agency. Her storyline mostly had to do with her relationship with McKay, then once in a while addressing the reputation she has received for being sexually active. While not one of my favorite characters in the first season, I felt bad for Cassie. She obviously was a nice person who enjoyed sex, but sometimes thought it was her only value. It was sad, so it would be nice to see her grow from that. Then Sam Levinson said, nope, Cassie will be sad for 8 whole episodes. Season 2 pretty much exclusively builds to Cassie having a mental breakdown at Lexi's play. Whenever we see Cassie, she is either stressed out, horribly depressed, vying for attention, and crying and or screaming.
God, I just love fucking everything! No!
What is odd is that Cassie gets a ton of screen time this season, but her storyline is just this. Nate, please notice me, and I hope Maddie doesn't find out. I kinda get why Cassie would sleep with Nate in the first episode. She's feeling lonely and a cute guy is showing her kindness. It just becomes an addiction for her. However, the storyline gets real stale because she is just into Nate. Maybe Cassie starts sleeping with a ton of people, maybe even starts sleeping with McKay again, and at the end of the season she realizes she is addicted to it, not because she enjoys it, but because she seeks validation. Instead, it is just Nate, a character she barely interacted with in season 1. It is annoying to see Cassie be written off in the show as a sloppy mess who only cares about Nate. Maybe they can bounce back from this, but also it could have happened in the season. Wasting 8 episodes of hour-long TV and all I got from a character is that she is sad seems like a waste of time to me. Now on to Cassie's favorite topic of season 2. Nate was my favorite character from season 1. Not because he's a good guy, but because he was the most interesting to explore and is portrayed brilliantly by Jacob Elordi. Nate is a toxic person who feels like he needs to act a certain way to gain respect from his peers. He tries to be the alpha male in every situation, as his father always ended up dominating him. He had interesting dynamics with a lot of characters, such as Jules, one of the only people he has ever communicated genuinely with. There was a lot to explore with Nate in season 2, especially with how the first episode ends. Then they just don't. Notice a trend yet? Nate becomes extremely tied to Cassie, who I truly do not understand what he likes about her. It is definitely not just a sex thing for him as he invites her to live with him. It's just his motivations with her seem unclear, as he is still drawn to Maddie and admits that he does truly feel passionate about Jules. Every time he has an understandable out with Cassie, he just inexplicably goes back to her. What also feels off is that while Cassie's story is mainly focused on Nate, Nate's main story does not. Instead, it is his relationship with his father, Cal. Cal actually goes through a lot this season. He actually gets this really good flashback leading into him accepting his sexuality and then walking out on his family. In another really good scene, Nate's mother finally challenges Nate to stop blaming his father for all his problems. This eventually leads to him playing Russian roulette with Maddie, by far his darkest moment, to get the recording of Jules sleeping with his dad back. Then he gives it to Jules to dispose of. It is one of the few moments of intrigue in the entire season, but it just kind of exists in a vacuum. There's not a lot of build up to it, and it just kind of happens. The season ends with Nate getting his dad arrested. Nate does things this season, but they feel so disconnected from each other. A does not fully move to B. To make Nate's arc this season make sense would require a lot of reaching. Maybe it would be easier to take in if the pacing just wasn't so off. If you haven't picked up on it by now, one of the main criticisms of this season is its pacing. Events are spread way too far apart from each other, and pivotal scenes you as an audience would like to see are essentially withheld from you. For a full 5 episodes, one of the main tensions of the season was when is Maddie gonna find out Cassie and Nate are sleeping together? It was something fans were eagerly awaiting for, as even the show was building up to the explosive reveal. Then, in episode 5, an almost exclusively Rue-focused episode, she reveals the secret relationship to Maddie. She begins to show how furious she is and chases Cassie upstairs. Finally, the fallout you have been waiting half a season for, and then we never see them again for the rest of the episode. We do get to see the scene as a flashback in the 7th episode, but the thrill is gone. I remember watching the scene and yearning for the focus to shift to upstairs so we can see this one scene, and then we don't get to see it because it happens in a Rue-focused episode, where if she doesn't see it, then we don't get to see it. Do you see how frustrating this is? 8 hours, and somehow Sam Levinson managed to waste all that time. It is especially bad in the last episode, when multiple flashback scenes show up, even though they probably should have just been sprinkled throughout the season. It just feels like Sam thinks being non-linear is clever, but to me you need to have a good reason why your story is non-linear, and here there is none. In such a character-focused show, it is extremely important to understand what happens to who when. These events inform character action and helps the audience be invested by following a character's logical progression. Here, we just get a barrage of wannabe artsy scenes that just drag the whole show to a screeching halt. These weird, pointless scenes may make more sense later, but let us start wrapping it up with the final 2 characters. I cannot express how important a character like Jules is, to not just this show, but television in general. a trans main character who does not fall into cruel stereotypes. Sadly, this kind of portrayal is very rare in most media. Jules was such a crucial character in Season 1 between her budding romance with Rue and her fascination with the man who turns out to be Nate. There was so much more to do. She is easily one of the most popular characters in the show. I think some people even just watched the show for her. Between Seasons 1 and 2, we had 2 specials, one for Rue and one for Jules. The wild thing about Jules' special is that it is so far the only time throughout the whole show that there is another credited writer besides Sam Levinson, this being Hunter Schafer herself. The special ends with Jules seeing Rue for the first time since they parted ways. This set up Season 2 to really dig into their relationship and see how much they depend on each other. The first sign this season was going to falter for me was the end of Season 2 Episode 1, where Rue and Jules just get back together. Sam Levinson said he thought it would be interesting to challenge Rue by giving her everything she wants. That would be interesting if that was explored in any meaningful way. Due to this one story decision, Jules really gets benched for most of the season. They really only end up doing 2 things. 1. Cheat on Rue with Elliot because he said nice things to her once. 2. Flush Rue's drugs and tells her mom. Jules in this season hurt to watch because it felt like I wasn't even seeing the same character anymore. The only time Jules felt like Jules was when she talked to Nate. That one time. She just felt so off. She has nothing to do because we are just waiting for her to find out about the drugs, and then that happens and that's it. I don't know what caused this, but everything I liked about Jules was just gone. She always came across as someone very empathetic, but this image of her is ruined when during the play she is just laughing away at a crying Cassie on stage. Definitely number 1 for me in terms of character assassination. Alright, this is the big one, the main character of the whole show. How did they screw this up? Look, I'm gonna be honest. It is hard for me to talk about Rue. This has been a problem for me since Season 1, because I really do not like Rue. I am aware Rue is not supposed to be likable, but for me there is a line. I am fine with main characters who make bad decisions, but Rue just feels so entitled. The pilot has her coming out of rehab being like, lol, I'm just gonna start doing drugs again. Addiction is a bitch. It is hard to break, but it is also hard to like a character who is incapable of learning from their mistakes. Rue in both seasons goes through very traumatic experiences and does not take them seriously at all. She treats her supposed loved ones so terribly for no other reason than to get high. Now listen, you may be starting to say, addicts are like this in real life. They still deserve sympathy, and I agree to a point. The hard truth is that if any of us had someone like Rue in our life, we would distance ourselves from them after a while. You can only help addicts if they want to be helped, and Rue has made it very clear they are not good at accepting help. Ask yourself, could you still be chummy with someone who thought about attempting selling drugs at a drug addict support meeting? Because I really don't think you would. Another thing that has made it hard for me to relate to Rue is that she has, for the majority of the show, been defined by her addiction, to the point I have a hard time really talking about her other than that. This is a big problem with the show for me, as it is the central theme of Euphoria. But I cannot lie and say that when I try to think of what Rue's future story can entail, all I think of is, she kicks the drugs, oops, she relapsed, she kicked it again, but oh, she relapsed again. What more can you do with a character like this? Alright, so what actually happens to Rue during the season? Well, she gets involved with a drug dealer to sell drugs so she can have more money to buy drugs. When this doesn't work out, she just starts doing the drugs herself. Eventually the drugs are flushed by Jules, then she goes back to the drug dealer who implies she is going to sell Rue to pay off her debt. This causes her to try to go clean again, further enforced by Lexi's play for some reason. The only interesting thing that could happen to Rue is the drug dealer trying to find her, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that was never addressed again. I prefer Euphoria as an ensemble show, so when episode 5 is a whole episode exclusively focused on Rue, that is done that way, for no other reason but to try to get Zendaya an Emmy, it really frustrates me. Maybe you should take the whole character-focused episodes idea from Skins just to show everyone some love. I don't know, just a thought. I do not hate Rue. Her special is probably my favorite piece of Euphoria because it seems to expand her understanding of the world and her relationship with Ali. No flashy visuals, just a well-written exchange that made me hopeful Rue had a momentary lapse of judgment at the end of season 1, and that she was going to try to get better, not for other people, but for herself. Then in episode 1 of the new season, she is held at gunpoint, forced to expose herself, and almost overdoses all in the same night and learns nothing. Kind of annoying when you lay it out like that, huh? Okay, let's wrap this up. From multiple reports, production of season 2 was a disaster. Sam Levinson probably felt like hot shit after season 1, and HBO probably went, great job, new season, do whatever you want. This power definitely went to his head.
I always feel like everyone's always giving advice to no one who's asking for it.
Actors complained about long shooting days, cause get this, Sam would rarely show up to set with a shot list. This is kind of crucial, because it pretty much outlines how you set up your new giant film cameras for certain shots. You know, so you don't waste people's time? Shooting apparently got so bad during the party episode that extras were hiding in bushes so they didn't have to stand around for 3 hours under hot lights with no food or water, waiting for Sam and his cinematographer to set up shots. Days could go up to 10 to 12 hours. Main actors even described the production as difficult. It is hard not to see in interviews that even the cast was a little bewildered by the decisions of this season. Something I want to be clear about is that despite my many problems with this season, all the actors are still doing a bang-up job, especially considering how bad the material they're working with is. I will give Sam this though, if problems are voiced to him, he is willing to change it. A highly publicized aspect of the production was some of the female leads addressing the show's nudity. They thought there was too much and some scenes were asked to be changed so they can be clothed. So credit where credit is due, Sam changed the scenes when asked. He never pressured any of the stars to do more nudity than they felt comfortable with. What great respect he has for all of his... Oh, I almost forgot about her. Like you did, Sam? I want to be very clear that all I'm about to say is rumors and gossip. We have not had a valid source on this topic, and Barbie Ferreira even said that a lot of info going around wasn't true. I would, however, like to present it as it could be a possible explanation for whatever happened to Kat this season. I have another theory, but we'll circle back to that later. So apparently, Barbie Ferreira had strong opposition to the direction her character was going this season, to the point where she would walk off set certain days. The rumor is Sam wanted to give Kat an eating disorder, but Barbie thought that would be too dangerous to show, so Kat's screen time this season is reduced by a lot in some horrid retaliation. Like, noticeably a lot. It is weird because we get inklings of her arc in the first couple episodes, where she shows some unhappiness in her new stable relationship with Drew Gooden.
Road work ahead? Yeah, I sure hope it does.
Then she has a weird breakup scene, and that's the end of her story. Whenever she shows up, she's just there. It is unfortunate because Kat had a great storyline in season 1, covering sex work in a new way not really seen before. If what happened happened, then shame on Sam for using his power to essentially hide a character people really love just because they get into fights. I have an alternate theory though. Something that a lot of people really haven't considered. Maybe the writing is just bad because Sam was winging it. If people are going to say Sam fighting with his actors results in less screen time, then he must have been fighting with everyone except this bunch right here. It is hard to see a show you liked become worse. You get invested in these characters only to be let down with where they go. It is nice people care this much, but for me, I can't do it anymore. Despite the criticism and the culture of hate watchers that developed for this season, the show is a huge rating success for HBO, so there is a chance they will just let Sam Levinson do whatever he wants again. I understand if other people want to stick around, but for me, I would need to see a sign of change that Sam was going to loosen his grip on this show and let other people write for it, or even let others direct again. They'll have till 2024 to decide if they want to make any changes to the production of the show, if any. Euphoria Season 2 was a frustrating disappointment. After waiting over a year, I started dreading the week leading up to new episodes where I would watch with friends. As of now, I am done watching the show. I'd rather try to maintain my memories of Euphoria's highs instead of continuing to watch its lows. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked Euphoria Season 2, let me know. I'm genuinely curious why anyone would. I would also like to thank the recent influx of subscribers I got recently. I really appreciate it. It really motivates me to keep working on the channel, because right now it's just kind of like a creative side project. Right now I'm kind of busy with my main stuff, so that's why there's still going to continue to be large gaps between videos, but I promise you I have more in the works. There are more coming. Again, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Share the video with anyone you think might be interested in my content, and I'll hopefully see you soon.